Hello, hello, and welcome to Synthesis of Style and Spirit. I'm your host, Helena Grant, and I am thrilled today to welcome Dottie Lamoureux. What can be more humbling than to witness a transformation in someone? It's extraordinary, and Dottie knows that there are powerful forces guiding everyone's life, and the forces are as unique as each client she assists. Dottie connects with the forces within. As a healer and teacher, Dottie is guided to use Reiki, the Akashic records, goddess intuition, and moon wisdom to illuminate anything unseen that might be limiting fullest expression. Dottie holds compassionate space to help people heal and create peace within. What could change for us if we understand our soul's motivation and desire? Every answer lies within. Dottie's talk today is entitled Using Esoteric Tools and Inner Wisdom for Your Greatest Self-Expression. Dottie, welcome to the Synthesis of Style and Spirit. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Helena. I'm honored to be here and so excited. So thank you.
Yes, it is so great to have you. And I can't wait to talk about these esoteric tools.
I'm excited as well.
So let's just launch right in with that. What are esoteric tools and how do they relate to self-expression?
Well, let's see. So I think first I'd like to address what esoteric means and what the dictionary might classify esoteric. And it's, they will say that it's something that's esoteric is something that's difficult to understand and only a small circle or a small circle of people would understand that they're special and rare, or it might be an unusual interest of some sort. And while I appreciate that definition, I like to think that as a human race right now, or as a species, we are coming to understand esoteric teachings and tools in a more everyday, adaptable, easy way. So I love the word esoteric, but I don't want it to feel limiting for people because I think it's really accessible for all of us now. We're just becoming more conscious. So some of the tools that might be classified as esoteric would be herbs, stones and crystals, pendulums, oracle and tarot cards, maybe altars. I like to think about meditation and prayer and ritual being esoteric tools as well. So they can help with higher self-expression or self-expression as a whole, because it helps you get to know yourself better. It helps you understand what your desires are, what makes you feel comfortable in your body, and how you connect to your spirituality. I think all of us have a unique sense of spirituality, like all of us have a unique sense of style. So I think that tools are, everybody uses different ones at different times, and maybe a lot of them and maybe one, so esoteric tools can really help us just express ourselves better and more comfortably stand in our power.
Absolutely. And I was just speaking with someone recently about the concept of higher intelligence, which of course is source, divine intelligence, however you want to phrase it. But it's that idea of, we start out as a single cell and then we just keep multiplying. And then suddenly we develop lungs and a heart, and all of these organs know exactly what to do because it's already in place. And so with these esoteric tools, that's really what we're tapping into, is that all those answers are already in there, but we have kind of gotten so far away from them. We've been pulled away from them. And now, and then I think that crystals are becoming a little bit more mainstream now. The herbs, I think with, the essential oils, those are a little bit more visible, and and meditation too. I think scientifically, people are really seeing that has incredible benefits.
Absolutely.
Connecting to that serenity, that peace, that quiet, that quietness that really is so rich and so abundant and has so much wealth to it.
Yes, it does, especially right now. As we're filming this interview, we're in the middle of our shelter in place orders for a lot of us, and we've been forced to go internal, not only in the structure of our home, but in the structure of our being. So some of the tools can just be really comforting and helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a big part of what we're doing right now is we're really getting to know ourselves in a way that we haven't had a chance necessarily to do previously when there was so much noise, there was so much busyness. And we've really had to go within. And what's coming up for me at the moment is this study that I read once that the vast majority of people would rather receive electric shocks than to sit and just face a wall for 5 minutes and be alone with their thoughts. So it's almost like now we're going through this reprogramming, and to have these tools assist us to ensure we're being more gentle with ourselves and really tuning into those other realms is very helpful.
Yes, it is. I'd rather sit and face a wall personally.
I would too. I thought, oh, what a wonderful thing to be able to do.
I know. Please, somebody force me.
Let me. Yes, well, you don't even have to pay me. So Dottie, you use the Akashic records in your work with clients. So can you describe the Akashic records and how they might help someone uncover their unique soul style?
Yes, I love this question. So the word Akasha is a Sanskrit word, and it means primary substance. So that's one of the primary substances of the 5 elements of which the universe is composed. So the Akashic records are an energetic library of souls. So every life that a soul has lived, the records have a record of every thought, deed, action, word. And this being in the records can give us really valuable insight into our soul and its purpose and its contracts. So I think that ties into soul style when we consider, excuse me, when we consider style as a manner of doing something or as a distinctive appearance. When we can gather insight into our soul's purpose and contracts, we then can get a sense of our soul style, right? So the records are also a very healing and comforting place. So I love when I'm doing a reading with somebody to let them know that it's like being in therapy, but it's so warming and loving because your masters, teachers, and loved ones are coming through, and they see you as whole and complete. And so you really get a sense of that love and that compassion when you're in your records, and it's really quite beautiful. And I think that the Akashic records could be considered an esoteric tool, especially because historically they were only accessed by people that had devoted decades of their life to spiritual training. Where now we've reached a point in humanity's development that the records are available to anybody interested in developing a conscious relationship with their soul. So that conscious relationship can lead to understanding, again, your soul style. So the records also are very useful in helping us see and understand at a soul level any challenges that we're having currently in our life, and we see it from our soul's perspective, which tends to be a little bit more loving than our human perspective, a little bit more understanding, and again, compassionate. The past life, sometimes people are like, I'd like to look at my past lives, and for those of us that are old enough to remember card catalogs at the library where you'd go in and pull a card.
I do.
I do too, very much. It's not, the records aren't quite like that. You can't go in and say, I want to look at life number 543 and pull it out. They will give you that perspective if it's pertinent to the information that you're seeking. So it's really interesting in that way too. You will sometimes get an insight into past lives, but it's just if it's going to help you move through something that you might feel stuck in presently. So they're very helpful in major life transitions. They will help you work through stuck patterning, anything that you might feel like you're not moving through or you keep coming up against over and over again. They're great with relationship issues. They help give you that perspective of maybe why you react in a certain way quite often, or choose the same type of partner, that kind of thing. It can be really, especially with people that we come into life with soul contracts with, generally our family. So that it can give you really great perspective on that kind of thing. And just difficult challenges, anything you might need guidance in any area of your life. Again, that'll help you understand your soul style just in a deeper way. And they also help reveal underlying causes and conditions. So it's just perspective that we wouldn't really necessarily get anywhere else. It provides healing energy and insight that bring deep healing and peace. So yeah, that's really in a nutshell.
I know what a beautiful space they are, and that it was just such a beautiful glimpse and very succinct description of what the Akashic records are. So thank you for that. And I think I love what you are talking about too, with style as a way of doing things and expressing yourself, and how the Akashic records can really support that as a journey, because style, just like humans, it changes how you express yourself, what's needed, what's going on in your life, what you want to accomplish. And of course, the struggles that come along too. So to have access to that realm that can really give us insight, and especially from that soul level. So sort of that like 30,000 foot level where you're looking down at the situation versus like in it. So you can see the forest and not just the trees, right?
Exactly. Yes. They've been super helpful in healing for me. I can say, just as, firsthand experience, that I've received so many benefits and so much perspective that I wouldn't have had before, because I tend to get stuck. I have a lot of Virgo in my chart, so I want A, B, C, and D to work, and if they don't work, I'm like, what now?
You want it to be organized.
Exactly. And no deviation.
No deviation. Yes, stick to the plan, please. My daughter is a Virgo, so I'm familiar with the concept.
Yes.
So in this summit, we are talking a lot about synthesizing, bringing two things together to make one. So what tools do you recommend for someone who wants to bring together their spirit and their soul style?
Oh, let's see. Well, there's many tools, right? I mean, there's so many tools to help us grow as humans. There's so many tools that help us go inside. I think it's important to clarify the difference between soul and spirit. Until I read a book, a life-changing book many years ago called Dark Nights of the Soul, which is by Thomas More, Moore. I used those words interchangeably, but once I started to study Thomas's work, I started to realize there's a clear distinction between spirit and soul. So, and just background on him, he's an American psychotherapist. He was a monk, and he's written a lot of books, many books. So he says that the spirit is the part of us and the part of our life that wants more, that wants to transcend and wants to grow, wants to move into a better world, and wants to improve ourselves. And on the other hand, he says the soul, the deep soul, it has to do more with things that are very ordinary, part of ordinary life that you feel intimately. So he says the first point about the soul is that the soul needs a home, and it needs a sense of home. So the soul likes to know it's in the right neighborhood, it's in the right town, the right house. So he said that sense of home, or he says that sense of home, that being where you need to be, is a very ancient idea, and that's the basis for the soul, just to really feel at home. And the other thing he talks about is how the soul will attach itself. So soulmates, for instance, we attach to that person. We attach to our families, our kids, our pets, and even objects, which, we can become attached to things we own. So he says that's a sign of a real soulful life, that you're able to make an attachment. So, of course, we could go into the Buddhist perspective, which says attachment causes suffering, which is true. But I find that very comforting, to know that the ability to make attachments means that I'm in touch with my soul. So all of that being said, I feel like soul style could almost be considered how you would decorate your home, or how you would decorate and dress your body, because that's how you feel at home in your body and how you express your style. So another kind of metaphor, I always tend to think in car metaphors, which is really interesting because I don't really like cars.
I'm on board with car metaphors.
It's just so easy because they're there, and we understand.
And they're vehicles too, that you kind of get into to go somewhere. So please, you have a green light.
Thank you. Well, you could consider, a car, the engine is the soul and the driver is the spirit. So the spirit can go places, it can transcend, it can move, and the soul is the basis. It's always doing what it's doing. It's the home of the car, essentially, sort of. So I like that metaphor personally because it gives me more of a concrete human visual. So the other thing that I like that Thomas More talks about is that we don't have to be taught to be spiritual. This is just kind of an aside. I love this too, is that, if you are walking and you see a flower and you just take a moment to be in awe of that flower and that beauty, that's a spiritual act right there. So we don't need to be taught that. That's something that's very innate within us. So to get back to your original question about synthesizing soul, style, and spirit, to learn about your soul and how your soul feels at home in your body, what you attach to naturally, those are soul things. It's very important to have that perspective, because then you can feed your spirit that wants to improve and grow and transcend. So knowing and caring for your soul's needs and wants can help you grow, and that growth can lead to transcendence, which then helps you integrate spirit and soul. So having that knowledge of your soul style is invaluable in letting your spirit flourish, in my opinion. So there are a lot of tools, of course, that can get you to understanding your soul and your spirit and letting them integrate. And I personally, on my path so far as I've grown older, is something I've had to realize is that there isn't a one size, this is my Virgo again, there isn't a one size fits all tool for everybody or for me in every point of my life. So I like to, again, back to the cars, like if everybody in my state got on one highway at once, nobody would go anywhere.
Super congested.
Very congested. So there's lots of roads and lots of ways, lots of tools. So I'm just going to throw out a few, and of course, take it or leave it, whoever's listening. Hopefully you'll find something that works for you. You probably already have things that work for you, I'm assuming, the people that are listening. But journaling, I think, is one of the most powerful ways to get to know your soul. Just free writing, you can use prompts. One of my favorite things is to write the dear letter, dear moon, dear goddess, dear self, and then ask questions that I'm seeking the answer to. Oracle, tarot cards, Akashic records, of course. I think pendulums are great for yes/no answers, especially when, if you do utilize cards and the cards aren't quite clear. The pendulum can be a great asset to that. So really, all of that being said, you can observe when you find the tools that fit and feel good for that moment in time, you can observe what you find there and get a better sense of how you feel at home and where you might feel complacent, where your spirit might be kind of pushing to grow a little bit, and that will help you synthesize and integrate spirit and soul.
Which is like the ultimate benefit and goal, I think, of being human, is to have that integration of your being. So all parts of it, the soul, the spirit, the body, the mind, the conscious, the unconscious. And I just really want to say that in all of my studies, you just gave such an amazing synopsis of the difference between the soul and the spirit. And I wanted to just touch on too what you said about the sign of a soulful life being that we have attachments, because that is actually a really big part of the work that I do with women and helping them express themselves, that they can't let go of who they were, which is represented oftentimes by something that is hanging in their closet that they don't really like. It doesn't look good on them. They don't want to wear it. And so we just end up in this sort of cycle that I help them break. And that it can be so hard to let go, but then it's so liberating once we do, and that our soul feels ready to evolve. And then this connection between the soul and the spirit, that we feed the soul and then the soul nourishes the spirit. And, we start the whole thing over again. So that was just really so insightful. Thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. It's Thomas More.
Yeah, well, it's you delivering Thomas More. So
that book was a game changer. Anybody out there looking for some very insightful, spiritual food, his books are amazing.
Yeah, I wrote down The Dark Nights of the Soul. You said, right? Dark Nights of the Soul, Thomas More.
Yeah.
So we touched on higher intelligence and that wisdom. So what tips do you have for our audience that can help them trust that inner wisdom and activate the greater self-expression that they're looking to bring into their lives?
I think getting quiet is first. Well, I shouldn't say first. It's really important to be able to get quiet and hopefully arrive at a point where you enjoy the company you keep when you are quiet. I think that if some kind of music helps you calm, that's a great tool. Chanting can be a really great way to go internal, toning. Using nature to help facilitate a little bit of maybe an isolated or more quiet feeling so that you're really just with yourself. Journaling, of course, meditating, praying, and praying not in the way that you ask for something and get it, more in that, I'm sure many people that are listening understand that it's beyond that. I just I was raised Catholic, and not to diminish that at all. I think that's a great path if that's what works for you. But I have that, when I hear that word, I still think about how I was taught to pray, and it's not how I pray anymore. So I think gratitude is a great form of prayer.
Yeah, I also was raised a Catholic, so I identify with your upbringing. And I think that's exactly it. It's sort of changing the perspective on what prayer is and coming at it as exactly as you're saying, a place of gratitude. So thank you for guiding me in what I need to be doing, and along those lines, which isn't always how it's pitched.
Nope. And with that gratitude, finding ways to move your body with gratitude in a joyful way, I think is a really great way to learn how to activate greater self-expression, and moving in ways that you love, moving in ways that you look forward to, not only because it helps mental and spiritual health, but also because it helps, obviously, our physical body. It helps you move energy through that might be stagnant and blocking any spiritual recognition or even soul recognition. So becoming more embodied by moving the way that you like to move, I think is very, very powerful. And breathing, of course, just that simple act of breath, period, because without it, we don't have much. So that, I think, obviously learning to breathe is going to help you express better in so many ways, to talk better, or speak better, I should say, to move better, to relate to your soul better. So that those things, I believe, can help us learn to listen to our inner voice. And another key that I think is really important in listening internally is believing what you're hearing. And sometimes I think in the beginning of a practice where you're learning to get more internal and listen to wisdom from within is, am I making this up? Which even so what? Because think about when you were a kid and you were operating from that place of imagination. There was no stopping you. You just did it. It felt good. You were in the flow. It can be the same way for us as adults. So I think getting in touch with the imagination, and however that works for you, maybe that's painting or sewing, great way to really start to develop that relationship to your inner wisdom and trust it. I think another way to that point of believing what you're hearing is looking for synchronicities outside of yourself. I had a friend who, I just love this story as an example. She was living in a place where she had a lot of family and a lot of friends, and she loved that aspect of where she was living, but she didn't like the environment and she didn't like the climate. So she really wanted, her soul and her heart really wanted to be somewhere else, but she really didn't want to give up the support. So she's driving to work and she's contemplating this. And a semi-truck passes her and it says Pacific Northwest Movers. And that's where she wanted to move, was Oregon.
Wow.
And she was like, okay. So I think those kinds of things that happen, it's important not to ignore them because they're real.
And I just got full body chills hearing about that because, you know that's the truth.
Exactly.
You're ready to believe it and listen and be available for those messages. So, your perception, which comes from having energy flowing through you, not stagnant, which you can assist through the journaling, through the meditation, the prayer. And then I love what you said too about the dancing. Nature as a facilitator as well. That's where we are meant to be, is moving and experiencing the outdoors. Not always how our modern life is structured, but all of those things can help us in the other areas that are a part of modern life. I mean, obviously. So that's so cool that she could kind of take that message and know that it was really supporting her in the next phase of her life.
Yes. Yeah. And that, also listening to ourselves, then we're not guilting ourselves or shaming ourselves or living from that place of fear. We start to become so much more empowered, therefore expressing ourselves in much greater ways.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And able to say no when we know that something's not the truth. and then also on the flip side of that, we can say yes, because we do know what we need and kind of what our bodies and our higher intelligences are instructing us and sort of nudging us in the right direction, right?
Right. Exactly.
So then what do you feel are some of the best ways for someone to illuminate their spiritual path that they might either be on right now or that they're interested in sort of commencing? What would be your counsel on that?
I think understanding what feels right in your heart, your body, your mind, learning to lean into love, and knowing that when love isn't the primary focus or feeling that you're experiencing, that you have a choice. There's love and there's fear. So you can choose which one you'd like to engage with. And not to say that it's easy to just move out of fear-based thinking, because it's not. But there, you do have a choice. And I think that's really helpful to understand from a spiritual perspective, because you don't have to be stuck in any one way of thinking or feeling even. So it's important to honor it and recognize it when it's happening, but know that there's a different path if you choose it. Also, to understand that the things that we might think of as outside of ourselves are not outside of ourselves, that we're all connected. We're just one big giant web of breath and vibration. So just breathing, I think, gets you in touch with that. Meditating gets you in touch with that. I think a sky practice too, and just meaning that if that's go outside and look at the stars at night can be a sky practice, or if there's a planet that you identify with, you can talk to that planet. The moon, I think, is extraordinarily powerful to communicate with and understand cycles, understand our emotions, because the moon is attached or connected with our emotions and our emotional climate, internal emotional climate. So it's very helpful in understanding on a deeper level. Just to even look at the moon, I think, personally, makes a huge, huge impact on us. So also the very practical things like eating well, healthy foods that make you feel good, drinking plenty of water, trying to stay away from as much processed food as possible, and maybe eating food without labels as much as you can. And sometimes just knowing that caffeine and energy drinks and things like that can make it harder to ground yourself. So that's affecting your energetic frequency. So just understanding that and knowing that, and also drinking enough water. Not only does it help our cells and the fact that we're composed primarily of water, but it helps flush out the physical body of any karmic byproducts. So it's really, really healing in that way. Avoiding synthetics and chemicals as much as possible, of course. Aligning your chakras in a way that makes sense for you. So that can be, of course, meditation, acupuncture, healing therapies like massage and acupuncture, essential oils, like you mentioned earlier, exercise, like we talked about, chanting, live music when we're able to go do that again will really help. You know, that helps. You could consider your chakras as your body soul system. So knowing what makes that soul system feel good and doing it, being kind, activating our heart chakras makes for a better life. And I think it also helps us get more connected to the brain that's in our heart, or our heart brain. And that can really help illuminate any spiritual, what's the word I'm looking for? Conflicts, I suppose, you know, when we're feeling a little out of sorts spiritually.
Yeah, sort of what needs attention.
Yeah.
Out of alignment.
Yeah. And, you know, also getting in touch with our heart chakra helps us get back to source before we had egos, before we came into this body. And it can help you realize too that the ego, that's where fear is, and that's where we start to operate in a mode of fear. It's our ego that wants to stay alive, and it's afraid that if we choose love and we choose to be a bigger expression of ourselves, then the ego is not going to have anything to do, and that scares the ego. So that's when it pipes up and it tells you you're not enough.
It's worried about being unemployed.
Exactly.
But it has so many jobs to do, the ego. I think it just kind of gets sort of in a rut, and it's like, oh, well, this is a comfortable space for me to be in, so we're just going to stay here because we're safe and we're surviving. So don't grow and expand, because you don't know what's out there. You don't know the unknown. But then, of course, what you're saying is you get back to that source, and you can garner trust that you are taken care of and that you do know the answers and you know the path ahead, that you are illuminating yourself and is also illuminated for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And I really loved what you said, that nothing is outside ourselves, that we are a giant web of breath and vibration. And I think that that is such an incredible and profound aspect of what we're going through with the pandemic, is realizing how incredibly interconnected we are. I mean, this is evidence of it, and that we are a human race. We are not separate based on skin color or ethnicity or anything. I mean, it's just extraordinary to me, the sort of philosophical implications of it. And there are just so many profound messages to be taken from it.
There are.
Yeah.
There really are. And my prayer for this, especially in the United States, is that our leaders make good choices, because this is a big tipping point and many things. So that's where we want to get in touch with our spirituality, when we're at that tipping point and know we're doing the right thing and operating from a place of love instead of fear.
Yes. And when we do that as individuals, it helps fuel the collective to make those better decisions. And, all about that. We take care of ourselves first, and then everyone else can be well cared for as well.
It's true. It's a ripple effect.
It is. It is. Even that tiny ripple can become a massive wave.
Mm-hmm. It will eventually.
It will eventually. Indeed.
Yeah.
And Dottie, your gift for our audience is to enter a drawing to win a free 60-minute Akashic record reading.
Yes.
What a wonderful gift to give the audience. Do you want to just speak quickly about what that looks like?
Sure. Really, we can look at whatever, whoever wins, what they want to look at. If they want to look for their soul style, we can definitely look at that. And I like to welcome people or invite people to have a couple questions in mind. And it's just it's a great way to get some perspective that you might not get from other tools that you're using, like meditation or oracle cards or sitting with your crystals. Yeah, I mean,
you really help facilitate getting clearer answers to those questions in a reading like that. So I'm excited for one lucky winner to experience that with you.
Thank you. I'm excited too.
And I'm definitely going to go out and do some sky gazing this evening. It is a new moon, so I won't see the moon, but I bet I'll see some stars. I love that recommendation that you gave us to just go out.
You might see Venus. Venus is in the evening sky right now.
Venus is in the evening sky. I definitely connect to her on a deep, deep level.
Have a conversation with her.
All right, I will. Thank you. And I hope everyone else does that too.
Yeah.
Dottie, thank you so much for being here with us today in Synthesis of Style and Spirit. And thank you for the work that you do in the world.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the work you're doing and for organizing and creating this community. It's a really beautiful thing. I'm honored to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye.